All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good
Welcome
morning.
to Sunday Morning Grace. It is Sunday, January 9th. Happy New Year. Um, I'm Reverend Marianne, for those of you who don't know me, and I am honored and excited to introduce our special guest today, Reverend Dawn Anderson, one of our ministers here at the Divine Order of the Sacred Rose. And before we get into our topic of discussing spiritual clutter and how to declutter,
Mhm.
I'd like to welcome Dawn and invite her to offer our opening blessing. So take it away, Dawn.
All right. Well, in preparation for today, I pulled a card for us and just trying to make sure you can see it there. It's from a deck by Cheryl Lee Harnish, and her decks are completely fractals. So they're just beautiful to look at. This one happens to be number 14, which stands for gratitude. So if everybody would like to just take a minute, close your eyes if you want. Otherwise, just take a moment and just breathe that in and feel those things that you're grateful for in our universe today. The changes that you're going through, everything that's happening in our lives. Just feel it. And that was our signal. Thank you. And back to you, Marianne.
All right. Well, that was really beautiful. And I love how there's such synchronicity in things, and gratitude isn't what we're talking about, but yet gratitude really falls into this category of spiritual clutter, and just to be truly spiritual. So as we open our discussion on spiritual clutter, I think it's important to be grateful for the fact that we have the ability to have this clutter. It
True.
really kind of goes to the heart of everything. And gratitude is just so important today, more so than I think any other time in our lives. It's so important to really look at the things that are good, because so
Mhm.
often we focus on the things that aren't.
And just one point that I
Yeah.
wanted to throw in there too with gratefulness, and how much change we've had to adopt in our lives with COVID and all of those things. And this year, as we came upon the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, the one thing I had to turn and look at and mention to a few people was, if nothing else, I am grateful for COVID, because what did it do? It got rid of shopping on Thanksgiving, stores being open at midnight, people going out and focusing on things other than, what's right here in your home. So just one other little thing, if we can't be grateful to COVID for anything, at least maybe we can be glad that it changed the way that, the world did business. So,
And, and I think, and we're getting a little off topic, but I think it's important to
right.
mention it, as debilitating as COVID has been for all of us, I think in some way, it forced us to change and in a lot of ways simplify.
Hmm.
And that's a perfect segue
Yeah.
into our topic of spiritual clutter. So I think before we can discuss spiritual clutter and how to get rid of spiritual clutter or to declutter it, to open the door to possibilities, I think we have to really define what spiritual clutter is to you and I, because it may be
Hmm.
different for others, but it may spur people to think about spiritual clutter, because that can sound kind of like, what? Spiritual clutter? So let's start with, how do you define spiritual clutter? What's
Hmm.
your spiritual clutter?
Well, it's interesting because when the topic was originally broached, somehow in my mind, I turned it into chaos, and I was going spiritual chaos, which I guess is one and the same. I mean, if you've got clutter, you're going to be living in chaos. So it does kind of fit. And I guess I keep looking at what's gone on in the last 2 years with, the COVID and all the other changes in our lives. And when you've got all kinds of chaos in the rest of your life, your spiritual practice comes into play. And I am interested in 1,000 things. Run it past me, and I'd love to take a class and learn about it. However, when you've got chaos in every other portion of your life, I'd love to be the person doing, the moon, phase rituals, etc., and doing a novena and all the other practices. However, when push comes to shove and life gets crazy, you really have to pare back and only go back to those simple things. What can I easily accomplish in my life that's already kind of crazy? And for me, that just comes back to meditation, getting in touch, keeping that communication going, and perhaps pulling a card. And that may not be every day. And if it's not, that's okay. But I can't constantly be following the astrology and, the moon phases and all the other things that I'd love to. And I'm very interested, but push comes to shove, you've got to go back to core basics. And maybe that means weeding out and getting rid of extra, card decks. Maybe you don't need 50. Maybe you don't need, whatever you've got. And I know I'm as guilty as anybody else of, hoarding and, accumulating an awful lot. But at some point, you need to pare back.
And I love how last week Reverend Elvia talked about the card decks. Today you've brought up the card decks. I'm guilty. I have card decks on my night table. I have card decks on my coffee table upstairs. I have card decks on my desk here. I have card decks in a box in front of my desk. I have a whole shelf of card decks that I don't look at. But every so often, I'll go somewhere and I'll see that card deck tucked under some papers or something. I haven't used that deck in a while. And it is fun to unearth them.
Yes.
And to just see what they have to say. A card deck you haven't used in a while. But for all of us shoppers out there that tend to have somebody pick up a card deck and pull a card and you go, oh my God, I love that deck. Just like you just did with that deck you pulled today. My first instinct is to go on Amazon and to see how much they are. And I think that's one of the first things we have to really think about is before we buy something new, maybe look at what you already have. And when I need a card, I need to see a card from that particular deck that somebody else has. Like I would love maybe to connect with you later and have you pull a card for me from that deck. Maybe that's the way we do it, is we have to learn to share. So rather than all of us owning the same deck, we have to get together with, our angel buddies or our card reader buddies and say, hey, do you have this deck? Because somebody used that the other day and I loved it. Can you pull a card for me?
Or maybe we need to create a library, a loaning library of decks.
Right. And I have found for those of us who have to have card decks, the other thing I have found is I love having a few card decks on my phone electronically rather than the physical deck. Because what I can do is, like my niece all of a sudden has become very interested in spirituality, she and her girlfriends, and they've become quite good at it. In fact, I've always known my niece was good at it from the time she was a baby. I had to name her guardian angel. When she was a baby, and I would tell her stories about her guardian angel as she was falling asleep when I was babysitting her. And she's really gotten very, very good at it. She's shown it more of an interest now as a 16-year-old. And we were talking one day and I said, oh, I've got this really great deck, and it was on my phone. So it becomes very portable because we're always with our phones.
Right.
So that
Sure.
is a suggestion for people who
Hmm.
like to have cards. I misplaced my Gaia deck, and I love the Gaia deck. I put
Mm-hmm.
it on my phone. So I don't have to go out and buy the cards if I really, but there are some cards you really want that physical touch with.
Right.
But it's a
Yep.
thought. So just a
Yes.
suggestion for people.
Yep. That's a
Um,
great idea.
but when you were talking yesterday, as we were preparing just to kind
Hmm.
of roll around where we were going to head with this topic today, you hit the nail on the head for me because I have to be honest, spiritual clutter, I was cluttered with what is spiritual clutter.
Mm.
Um, I was just becoming overwhelmed with what is it? And when you started talking about like, I want to be involved in this and I want to be involved in that, and it was like, oh my God, that's me. And
Hmm.
it really is about simplifying and finding where your expertise lies.
Right.
Um, for example, Reverend Jamie and Reverend Peter, their expertise lies in human design.
Absolutely.
Reverend Elvia
Hmm.
has a very vast knowledge of human design and can speak human design very well.
Hmm.
I don't speak human design.
No.
It's one of those topics that's just, it's beyond me. And that's
Hmm.
okay. Because as
Yeah.
I have questions, I have the experts I can go to. Like I can go to somebody else to borrow a card deck or to have them pull a card for me. I
Right.
have an expert that can help me understand an aspect of human design. So I don't have to be an expert at it.
Hmm. Right.
I find that my passion, my joy, my bare bones basic is I love to work with people who are learning how to read cards
Hmm.
and to really be that teacher at the ground level, because the joy that I get from that in watching that self-discovery and the, oh wow, that's my passion. And that's really
Hmm.
where I need to kind of pare back to, getting to that
Hmm.
bare bones simplified version of what, how people come
Hmm.
to reading, how people interpret reading, and helping them get through the fear of that.
Right. Yep.
And when I need to know something about astrology or moon cycles, Jamie, again, another place where she's a master, is those moon
Hmm.
cycles. And she incorporates that with the human design so beautifully. When I
Hmm.
need to know that, I have my go to expert. All I
Yep.
need to know is how to understand how to interpret what she's saying and to ask questions.
Yep.
And
And that's perfect.
and if I stop worrying about I need to know this and I need to know that, for example, we have two beautiful events coming up with the Living with the Angels group. So if you're a member of the Living with the Angels group and you're watching this in the month of January, we have a sound bath coming up on the 22nd, and we have Reverend Elvia who's doing an EFT event for New Beginning. If you want to really help get rid of some of that spiritual clutter, even if you don't know what your spiritual clutter is, and this isn't a sales pitch, it just happens that she just announced these yesterday and it fits so beautifully. That's a great way to help you start to declutter,
Mm,
to find where
definitely.
your passions are.
Hmm.
So that's just a suggestion I'm throwing out for people. And if you're not a member
Hmm.
of our Living with the Angels group, reach out to us. We can tell you how to become a member and how to
Hmm.
how to access these really great tools. And that's,
And
go ahead.
EFT, that's a powerful tool. That is a, I didn't even put that into my comments on, different things, but I guess I would see EFT as such a critical piece also, just for yourself, even if you're not using it on somebody else, just
Mhm.
even to use it on yourself.
Mhm.
It's very useful.
And I think that that's a great way to also help declutter that spirit, that clutter, is to do
Hmm.
that meditation, those solitary events, whether it's a card reading, as you say, a card pull for yourself,
Hmm.
or whether it's a meditation. And I know a lot of people have trouble with meditation per se, but there's
Hmm.
lots of ways to meditate. I cannot sit and just meditate and let those messages come in, because as the
Right.
messages come in, I start to filter them and I start to have this dialogue, but.
Mm.
Find it's a great way for me to meditate, and I'm not good at it by any stretch.
Mhm.
I've picked up crocheting again
Ah,
just in the last
there you
couple of
go.
months, and that just kind of mechanical motion. And yes, you pay attention to what stitch you're doing, and if you're doing anything fancy with it. And I don't do anything truly fancy, but if I'm trying to do a pattern and I'm skipping links or whatever, there is a
Mhm.
meditative purpose to that. And what it does is it quiets your mind to focus
Mhm.
on what you're doing. And that's just a way to let spirit talk to you, even if you're not having a conversation with spirit. It's a way to let
Right.
spirit talk to you, because you're
Exactly.
quieting your mind from all this other stuff so you can focus on what you're doing.
Mhm.
So finding
Exactly.
something to do with your hands, getting a fidget spinner, or this is my tenant rock, but a worry stone is another great way to just meditate and just kind of just let
Mhm.
yourself go and just feel the smoothness, or feel
Yep.
the ridges, or whatever it is.
Sometimes even just having that open mind while you're walking, a walking meditation
Mm-hmm.
can be, very, very useful, very calming. First thing, like you said, was getting clear about, what is your go-to? What is your piece de resistance,
Yeah.
whatever it is, finding out, getting clear on that. The other thing that I was thinking about too, with the talking about clutter, was how many times I've seen studies or classes lately that are offering, take my class and we'll help you figure out how to get rid of your clutter, whatever kind of clutter it is. And the thing that I found interesting on those was how often they equate or relate trauma to hoarding and clutter. And I found that to be very, very interesting. So that's one thing, as we're talking about clearing out the spiritual clutter, we need to be cognizant of and keep in mind the emotional and mental aspect of decluttering. And, whatever that takes for you, um, some things we keep because they're sentimental. A lot of times we keep things out of fear, fear of lack. We may not have it in the future. We may not have the money to buy it again. Whatever that fear is that could keep you hanging on to something, we need to recognize that. And, you need to give yourself self-care as you do this, and take the steps that you need to take in order to get to that point where you can let go. Because if you feel like you're doing it because you feel pressured or somebody wants you to get rid of things, you're going to end up being resentful, perhaps. It just won't be positive. It's got to be a positive, freeing, letting it go because it's time, because you've gotten to that place.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other piece of that is, not only do we have to do it in our time, but for some people, just decluttering, deciding to simplify, can be very overwhelming, especially
Hmm.
if you're doing it in an emotional time, or
Right.
you are in an emotional time, and this is something that is going to make you feel better, or it's going to open up, and it's good. But if it feels overwhelming, then you just don't know where to start.
Right.
And sometimes I think the first thing to remember is, if you're in that predicament or situation, and it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Hmm.
So I think set that expectation right up front. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And I think that that's even going to be the case when we're starting to declutter our spiritual practices, whatever they are.
Hmm.
It's going to get worse before it gets better, because you're going to want to hang on to things because of the emotional aspect of it. So set that expectation first of all. And then secondly, we can really get into the weeds, and then when we're overwhelmed, it gets emotional. So something I heard on TV, one of these, New Year, New You kind of
Hmm.
things, Set a timer. Set aside 20 minutes every day. Put the timer on. Whatever you get done in that 20 minutes, you get done in 20 minutes. Don't do 30 minutes. Don't do 60 minutes. Don't say, I'll keep going. Set aside 20 minutes a day. It's a very manageable chunk of time. You will, and knowing that it's going to get worse before it gets better, but knowing that you're making progress. Or filling a trash bag, you know, around Lent, the 40 days of Lent, people have posted recently, instead of doing 40 days of, you know, I'm going to give this up, 40 bags of going through a closet and filling a small trash bag with clothes that no longer serve
40
you.
things. Yep.
Exactly. Or, you know, so 40 things, 40 bags, whatever it is.
Yep.
Find a manageable chunk for you, whatever that is going to be.
Yep.
Knowing that you may not have the desired effect right away, but that you're working toward that desired effect. So when you do come up with that item that has that super sentimental value, you say, okay, I've got 20 minutes and I'm not spending 20 minutes on this item, debating with myself whether I am or I'm not going to keep it. I'm going to take it, I'm going to put it aside. But you've planted that seed in your heart, in your head, and you know that you're eventually going to have to come back to it.
Yep.
So, and the same thing with our practices. You may love moon cycles. You may love card pulls. You may love meditation. You may love writing. You may love, you know, human design and all of these things. It's like, how do I give up any of them? And you don't have to give it up. It's just where do you focus?
Right.
So if you're not ready to just say, okay, what am I doing most often? Set aside a time. Where do I go every day? And then that's going to help you weed out. That's a great way to spiritually declutter without giving up anything, because what you're doing is you're bringing to the forefront what's most important, what you are most impassioned about, what you're doing on an everyday basis.
Exactly. Yep.
And
Totally
then eventually you do need sometimes to get somebody to help you really work through that emotional component and help you decide.
Yes, exactly.
So, and I know you had 3 points. Did you have a third point to share?
You know, I didn't come up with 3. I kept coming up with 2 and I can't get to 3. So that's, you know what? And that's okay. And it's interesting on the Lent with the 40 things. Feng Shui also has a similar type of attack on decluttering. And they say move 27 things. And I forget if it's a week or every day. But if you move 27 things in a week, that's quite a few, you know, and that doesn't mean you have to get rid of 27. That means you pick up 27 things and determine, keep, give, can't tell, you know, one of those 3 boxes. And even if you're moving out of your house, half of those things, that's a fabulous start. And then it's celebrating those teeny tiny starts, those teeny tiny successes, even if it's small. For me, sometimes, oh my goodness, you should see some of my drawers. I just redid one of my, you know, cleaning drawers where I keep supplies. And I feel fabulous about that because I weeded out a whole bunch of, you know, nasty looking rags that were worthless. It's a start. It's a start toward that clutter, and the spiritual is the same thing, little by little.
I have a closet full of shoes, my front hall closet. They just kept getting thrown in there. There's not even any order to them. And this summer, I started to tackle that closet. I still have work to do. But I filled 2 huge shopping bags with shoes that I used to wear for work, heels that I can no longer wear.
Yep.
Krista's not going to wear them. I took those 2 bags and I stuck them in my car and I dropped them off at Goodwill. Somebody else will benefit from them. Somebody else will enjoy them. They were nice shoes, but I didn't have anybody I could give them to. When I tell you, even in the midst, because this was when Krista was in the hospital and really sick. And so I was down, but it was like one day it was just busy energy. But when I tell you that for several days after that, the way I felt, how it lightened me, And
Oh,
so
definitely.
that's kind of like a go-to place again because I was looking for boots the other day. And it was like, I gotta get back to this closet again. And again, I know that it's going to be a fairly fast process because there are more heels that are buried in there that I haven't probably seen since I moved in this house
Oh
almost
my
9 years
gosh.
ago because I shoved them to the
Wow.
back of the closet. So,
Yep.
and it was like, I'll
Yep.
just put them all in there and I'll do this later, but later has not come yet. So
But
again,
that's okay. You'll
it's
get there.
when it's time. And I'm it and the purpose of that may have been to give me that feeling of release when I most needed it. It may not
Exactly.
have felt as good before, or the decision may be
Right.
easier because I'm not working anymore and I can't wear heels anymore. So the decision has become very easy on a lot of them. And,
Hmm.
and Krista's shoes, the same thing. She can't wear flip flops. She has a lot of shoes that are flip flops. She can't wear those anymore. So the decision is real easy. Just get rid of them.
Right.
There's
Yep.
no thought process involved. So I know we've kind of talked round robin, but I think
Hmm.
probably our biggest theme today is really not to be hard on yourself and to just do what feels good for you
Hmm.
in
Exactly.
small, manageable chunks.
And the one other piece, when we talk about giving things away, be it to Goodwill, be it the trash, etc. One of the other great things, when you have so many card decks like we all do, I think a fabulous thing to do is when somebody else really likes that card deck, to gift it to them. That's another fabulous way that you can pass it on.
And I know you are the queen of that.
Yeah, I love to pass things on. I do.
And I love that idea. I love that idea. And I think
Yeah.
it's worth sharing again because Peter shared it last week. Giveaways, gifting cards. And you can,
Hmm.
even if it's somebody that's not into card reading, you can say, you can give a little explanation if you're putting them in a note to somebody or in a birthday card. I pulled this card for you, and to me, this is the message it's meant to impart to you.
Right. Yep. Fabulous way to do it. And then you're spreading that joy, because that's part of what we want to spread out into the world. It's that message from the angels, and that's a fabulous way to do it.
Mm-hmm. And
And we can do that when we're coming from a clear place that's not cluttered.
right, right. Or when we're doing it, we're saying, I've made room in my life to enjoy the ones that I'm keeping, the ones that
Right.
speak to me the clearest or the loudest,
Right.
because not all card decks are created equal. They don't all
Nope.
speak to us the same way.
True. Very
And
true.
and once we do that, we do open the door to more possibilities. We open the door to
Mhm.
clearer messages, to really identifying what we enjoy and really going back to that with our whole heart and soul and
Mhm.
spreading and brightening our light. And if our light is bright, we're illuminating the path for others just by being.
Right.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Feel complete?
It feels complete to me. Yes.
Yay. All right. Um, so just a few housekeeping items. Reverend Jamie and I will be back next week for Sunday morning grace. And then we will be followed by next week. We will be on. Then we'll be followed by Reverend Nelia and Reverend Vanessa, and Reverend Carolyn and Dawn will close out our month. So we've got 3 more weeks of discussing this really juicy topic, and we pray that you'll be able to join us. If not, remember, if you're not here live, we'll be recording this and it will be on our YouTube channel, and you can visit that at any time and go back and visit any of our Sunday morning grace topics. And I think that's it for housekeeping. And let's go to the tenants. Let me pull them up here on the screen so everybody has them. And I invite you just to listen, to speak them with us if that's what feels best for you. but just let them go and settle where they need to go. I open my heart with deep gratitude and intend today to master my spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical energies. I am dedicated to my spiritual practice. I surrender to my soul's purpose through sacred prayer. I own my guidance.
I live in partnership with my angels. I serve with a loving heart. I am compassionate in every moment.
I trust it's all good. I allow immediate forgiveness. I honor my truth.
I listen to the spiritual messages within my physical body. I express myself creatively. I am one with Mother Earth. And so it is.
And so it is. Beautiful. So Dawn, I want to thank you for joining me here today for Sunday
Thank you for
morning.
having me. It
We'd
was
love
nice
to
to
have
meet
you come back and join us again. You
Mhm.
have such a beautiful energy and spirit to you, and
Thank
such
you.
words of wisdom. And so please consider yourself invited anytime.
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to say before we close?
No, I'm feeling complete, totally complete, which
Excellent.
is interesting because, never mind. Go ahead.
No.
Totally complete. No. I'm good.
Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us. And for our closing blessing today, I pulled from our stones, our Divine Order of the Sacred Road Tenet stones that we have. As I do often, I pulled the stone of the week and our tenet of the week to focus on. And I felt like this was a really good way to end. It's just this week, it's I trust it's all good.
Mhm.
And just in closing, just let that I trust it's all good dig into your heart. Let it just, I'm almost seeing it digging its way in. Because so often we're judgmental of ourselves, or we feel like they can do it, I can't. And that's not true. We have to trust that we're in the right place at the right time. And we are where we need to be right now, living the life we are intended to live. Whether it's challenges, whether it's joy. We can't judge ourselves based on anybody else's experiences. We are uniquely who we are meant to be. You are you, I am me. And together as a we, as a community, we are strong. We are powerful. We are one. Where you are weak, I am strong. And where I am strong, you are weak. And it doesn't matter. We hold each other up. We link arms and we form this beautiful, perfect circle around the world. And we beam our light. I'm seeing the Care Bears beaming their lights, their individual strength into a situation. And together we can conquer everything because we embrace who we are and where we are in this moment. So I trust it's all good. And beyond trusting, I know. Thank you for joining us this week. We'll see you next week. Love you. Bye.
Bye-bye.